Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Yes, thank you for joining us for Ask Rob and Rob, where we've got another couple of cracking questions from our listeners that we're going to be doing our very best to answer for you. But before we get to those, Rob, if someone's got a burning question of their own, how do they send that our way?
The number you want to call is 013-808-00035, or you can go to thepropertyhub.net/ask and get your questions into us that way. So first up, we've got someone with a great question, but no name, so let's call him Samson.
Hi Rob and Rob. Just want to say thank you for putting so much time and effort each week into developing so many people's lives. That's really good of you. Anyway, I've got a dilemma. I bought 2 houses last year, one which you advised in Manchester and one which you didn't advise in Doncaster. Both give me good rent. In fact, the Doncaster one gives me great rent. But recently I've had them valued. The Manchester one has gone up by 22,000, but the Doncaster one has gone up by 8,000. The Doncaster tenant is great and looks after the house really well. So my dilemma is, should I throw my Doncaster tenant out into the street, sell the house and buy one in Manchester, or keep things as they are, having a happy tenant and hoping that house prices will soon go up in Doncaster? Thanks a lot, hope you can help, bye.
Well, first of all, Samson, congratulations. You've done well. You've got involved, you've started investing, and you've done well. Your property in Manchester's gone great, and that's fantastic. What great capital growth you've had there. And to be fair, you've had growth in Doncaster too. So you're now thinking, well, wait a minute. While Doncaster's been okay, Manchester's been a little bit more kind to me. So should I double up in Manchester? And I can see why you'd want to do that. You know, Manchester is on the up and up. We talk about it on the podcast, and there's probably a long way for it to go. But don't rush. While Manchester is a fantastic area to invest, Doncaster actually is somewhere on our radar that we would probably invest in too. Now, it's all about the 18-year property cycle and where we are on it. And the growth in Doncaster won't match Manchester over the next few years. But at some point in the future, Doncaster's growth will go up and possibly exceed growth in Manchester. It's all about timing. Now, if you're in it for the long term, I wouldn't worry. Just hold, ride it out. You've got a great tenant. Life's obviously easy managing that property. Just keep hold of it, because eventually it'll come good and you'll win overall. Now, if you go for a third property, you can possibly study the 18-year property cycle a little more and decide on at that point in time where you should be investing. But don't beat yourself up, because Doncaster, I'm sure, will do well in the future, and the fundamentals are good there too. Now, let's just say, for argument's sake, that you ignore this advice and you want to invest in Manchester and sell that property in Doncaster. It doesn't mean that you're being an evil landlord by selling up your property. You could speak to your tenant and see if they intend to live there long term. You may be assuming that they do, but they actually may have an intention to move in the next 12 months. So therefore, by the time you sold it, they wouldn't be that hard done by at all. Or you could sell it to another investor who would be very keen to take on a property that has a really good tenant in. You know, good tenants are worth their weight in gold. They should be looked after. And that will go in your favour if you're selling it to another investor. Or finally, although it's unlikely, you could check with the person who's renting the property to see if they would like to buy it from you. They might not have the means to do so, but don't rule it out. Don't just assume again. Double check. And finally, if you can't sell it to an investor, they don't want to buy it, and they don't intend to move out in the next 12 months, by just having open and honest communication with them and saying, you know, this is what you intend to do, it gives them plenty of time to find alternative options, and you're not telling them last minute and turning them out onto the street. So as long as you do this respectfully, which I'm sure you will because you're thinking about it, then I wouldn't feel too bad. But whatever you do, Samson, good luck. It sounds like you're picking good areas for investment.
Great answer there, Rob. That's really enough for one episode of Ask Rob and Rob, but let's see if there's anyone else we can help while we're here. This is Stephen from Edinburgh.
Hi guys, this is Stephen from Edinburgh. I've just been looking at a flat to buy, and the home report has identified woodworm being infested somehow. Just wanted to see what you guys would have to say about that. So should I be running for the hills, or should I be taking advantage of everybody else running for the hills, being the only person left looking at it and potentially getting something that no one else is looking at, with something that may actually be easy to fix, or maybe somewhere in the middle. So I just wanted to see what you guys have to say about woodworm. Thanks very much. I appreciate everything you guys do. It's really great. Thanks.
Okay, Stephen, thanks for the question, and it's a good one. There's a general point in here and something more specific as well. So the general point is that everything can be fixed for a certain amount of cost and a certain amount of effort. There's no problem whether it's legal or structural that can't be fixed. It's just a question of whether it is worth your time and money to fix it. Now, of course, the more effort and the more expensive something looks, the fewer people are going to be interested in buying it. So everybody is looking for those properties where you could go in, do a quick kitchen and bathroom swap, give it a coat of paint, and it's good to go, and you get some uplift. As a result of everyone looking for those, loads of competition, and it's quite difficult to secure one at a price to make the whole thing worthwhile. Down at the other end of the scale, if you see a property that has got subsidence or looks like it does, that's going to put off the vast majority of people. Now, they're put off because it can be very expensive to put right and you need some specialist knowledge. But if you have that knowledge and you're willing to spend the money, you can negotiate so much off the asking price because no one else is interested in it that you can actually be rewarded really well for doing that work. So that's the spectrum and the general rule. How do you apply that to this exact situation? Well, it's difficult to know how much of a big deal this woodworm situation is, because when you get home buyer reports, they tend to be pretty conservative and they tend to just mention absolutely everything. If there's the slightest sign of something, or even there's not, but they think that there's the potential for something to happen in the future, they'll just put it down because the surveyor wants to cover themselves and not get into trouble if something emerges later that they hadn't mentioned. So they might have just spotted a tiny sign of woodworm and put it down, or the whole place might be completely infested and about to fall down at any minute. You don't really know which it is. Now, it's easy to find out. You can get an expert in to do a survey and tell you what the extent of the damage is and how it needs to be fixed. There might be some areas where the timbers need to be replaced and others where it just needs treating. You don't really know. The issue, of course, is you don't want to have the cost of getting that report if you're then unable or unwilling to buy the property. So what I would say is make your bid based on a pretty negative scenario. So imagine that loads and loads of work needs to be done. Go in low to make sure that there's plenty of scope to get that done. And chances are you're going to be pleasantly surprised. So you're looking at the real worst case. If indeed everyone else has been put off by that, then you've got a pretty strong chance of managing to secure the property and managing to make good money on it even after you've had the work done. If other people aren't scared off by it, well, then there's no point getting into a bidding war because you don't really know what you're buying, because you don't know how much you should be bidding, because you don't know how much the work is going to cost. So if that happens, time to move on to the next one. Are you taking a bit of a risk by putting in a bid without knowing the extent of the problem? Well, yes, but you're always taking a bit of a risk in property. At least here you know the risk you're taking. Often you'll buy a property thinking that everything's fine and then discover that there's some problem that's going to cost you money. So at least by knowing about it in advance, you can be prepared for it and you can try to build a buffer into your original offer. So there you go, another couple of property questions dispatched. If you've got something rattling around in your head and you want to know the answer, just go along to thepropertyhub.net/ask. We would love to hear your question. We'll be back with Ask Rob and Rob next week. And of course, we have the property podcast on Thursday. So we look forward to seeing you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.